So I was thinking, being a Nintendo fanboy and all, what should be my next project? Well, I found my project right here. This is a Nintendo Gamecube, and when I bought it, it was in a really rough state. It had paint markings, and the reset button and the power button were stuck. So I cleaned off the paint with nail polish remover. Even the Nintendo logo on top was full of dirt. And actually, that should be it, right? Nah. It was missing the serial port 2 lid on the bottom. Now I could opt to buy another Gamecube and take the serial port 2 cover from that Gamecube and put it on this one. But there is another option. Another thing is, I don't want to hassle with Gamecube discs. Now when I bought the Gamecube, I did not know which version the Gamecube was. Apparently this is a DOL 101, a European version. The problem being that the DOL 101 is a lot more expensive to mod. This model doesn't have a communication port. So the cheapest option, being the Xeno chip, is out of reach. And for the DOL 101, there's the more expensive option, being the GCLoader. Now the GCLoader does the same as the Xeno chip, except it replaces the whole disk drive, while with the Xeno chip you still have the disk drive.
Seeing that the GCLoader also has the possibility to load Game Boy Advance games, I opted for a Gamecube player, which will take the place of the missing port cover.
Just click it in, and there you go. But that wasn't enough for me. Now the Gamecube aesthetic, as well as the Game Boy player, aren't a match. One is pearl white and the other is silver. So I'm going to customize the Gamecube and the Game Boy player to match its aesthetic into one. So let's get started.
The outer screws are just Phillips head screws. And this must be Nintendo's simplest console to open by far. This thing might look complex, but everything is built compact into separate spaces. I removed the front controller port by taking out the flex cable attached to the motherboard. There are a lot of these golden colored screws that need to be removed in order to access that drive data port where the GCLoader needs to be. There are a few of these hidden underneath the cooling fan unit, so you need to remove that unit as well. The front controller ports have 4 long screws attached to the motherboard, and in order to lift up the complete plate, they need to be removed. Now you can take out the disk drive as a whole, seeing that this Gamecube won't be needing this disk drive anymore. I dismantle it, as we only need the plate to put the GCLoader on top. The GCLoader fits nicely on top of the original holes, as I simply screw it down. I just place the GCLoader back on top and place everything back. It's a simple swap. But now for the customizing part. I've been customizing consoles, giving them a paint job for about 10 plus years. This is the route I take, as I take you along. The hardest part of this console is the top lid. It has a lot of springs and spring coils that serve as the mechanism for opening the top lid to insert a disk drive. I need to take every piece of plastic apart and need to customize every piece of plastic. To pull off the Gamecube sticker, I thought it was a piece of plastic at first. I use a potato knife to get between the sticker and the plastic. I also removed the motherboard for the controller port to achieve that plastic. Now to move forward and remove the rest to get to the bottom piece of plastic. Removing the memory card flip mechanisms here, as they need to be part of the customization. And the final part is removing this bottom lid, as well as some of these items to just reveal the plastic bottom. I also removed the rubber feet. As I wanted a complete aesthetic and not 2 different colors, I took apart the player as well. This is pretty easy, but it's also heavy on the screws, and I removed the rest of the items inside. Another important thing is to remove the original stickers from the items. Now at first I wasn't going to place these back, I didn't really care for them, but after I took them off, I opted that I wanted to place them back eventually. Using a hairdryer is the way to go, as it loosens up the glue. Take the time and you can peel it off slowly. Using the softest sanding paper, don't use rough ones. I scrape off a little bit of the plastic items. This will ensure that the prime paint will attach faster, and it will also fill up the scratches as it adds a tiny new layer. I then wash all the plastic components with water to remove dust and plastic. There's also a glue residue on the console, and I remove that with benzene. This removes the residue, but also other crap like oils from years ago. Now I used to have my own studio, where I spray painted all the equipment, but it was a hot day, and I could make some leaps by doing it outside. Fair warning, I covered up the surrounding area, took my distance, and made sure that while painting there was no wind. Any wind will ruin up the process, as sand, dust, and other tiny floating particles might mess up the paint job. First up is priming all the items. This adds a new layer, which will easily take upon new added layers. It also fills up scratches. Try to avoid the items touching the surface. This way you can walk around the items and reach each spot to paint well. After the first layer has dried up, I rotated the items on their back to prime the insides. When dried up, I add the first top layer, which is pink. The key is to take your time, don't spray up close, and trigger the paint in waves. It's a bit exhausting on the finger, but gives the best result, as you don't want paint drips. Now I don't use cheap B brand spray cans, those contain too much water, resulting in paint drips. What you need is less water and more paint. These are Montanas. You can also use duplicate colors. After the first layer of all the GameCube items are done, I do the same to the GameCube player. This only needs one color, being purple. This is a tad darker shade than the original GameCube indigo color, though it might look the same. Now to start the second layer and combine it to give that galaxy shade. This takes a lot of progress and time, until, at least, I am being satisfied. Since the purple is coming from underneath the GameCube player, the cube needs to have this as well. I then used multiple layers to get a proper result. This took some sweet time, as I wanted to adjust the coloring over and over. After that's done, I coat the plastic with a matte layer, so that it's protected from soft impact. I waited a few hours to let everything harden, and this is the result. I like it. Time to put it back together. Since it doesn't have a disk drive anymore, the unit is kinda empty on the inside, and if you do it right, you won't have to go there ever again. Yeah, that's it. And you know what? I still like the results better than the original color. And this cube resides perfectly next to my Wii and Nintendo Switch. If you like this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. I make and made a lot of tech gaming related videos, so if you don't want to miss that, also hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you on the next video.